What do radical healing, quantum physics, transcendence, spiritual journeys, finding your life's purpose, and Zumba all have in common? On the surface, these things don't seem that interconnected. But before I get to that, I want to take a minute and talk about preconceived notions. We all have preconceived notions, usually concerning things we know very little about. I know for me personally, when I started today's interview, I had my own preconceived notions of Zumba. If you're not familiar with Zumba, perhaps you too have your preconceived notions of what Zumba is, of what type of people participate in it, of what the instructors are like, and whether Zumba would be appropriate for you. If so, I invite you to stick around because we're going to shatter those preconceived notions, and along the way, we'll cover radical healing, quantum physics, transcendence, spiritual journeys, finding your life's purpose, and, of course, Zumba. Hello and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Show. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, and my mission is to help you get into the best shape of your life, no matter your age, so you can show up in the second half of your life as the healthiest, strongest, most vital version of yourself. We have a great show for you today. Josette Tkacik is here, and she's going to help us level up physically, emotionally, mentally, and mindfully. But before we get to that, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Living Libations. It is so hard to find truly organic and natural beauty products that don't contain harsh chemicals. Most of the beauty products on the market are loaded with harsh chemicals, sulfates, and other unhealthy ingredients. Even organic or natural brands often sneak in these harmful chemicals. But Living Libations is here to change all that. Their line of pure and organic renegade beauty products will make you look and feel your best without any of the harmful chemicals. They have a full line of beauty products for men and women that not only leave you clean, radiant, and smelling great, but all of their products actually heal and nurture your skin's natural biome. I personally switched over exclusively to their products about 5 years ago, and they are an important part not just in my hygiene care, but my whole body wellness care. If you're interested in learning more, head over to livinglibations.com and check out their full line of soaps, shampoos, cleansers, oral care, deodorant, natural makeup, and so much more. And because you're a listener of this show, you can get 10% off everything when you use the coupon code SILVEREDGE at checkout. That's Silver Edge all run together with no spaces. Okay, enough of that. Let's get on with today's show. My guest today is Josette Tkacik. Josette is globally regarded as one of the most successful Zumba instructors ever and has been named a medical miracle for self-healing advanced rheumatoid arthritis. Her story and work have been featured on NPR, Zumba.com, The Daily Om, and many more. I started out by asking Josette what her childhood was like.
I was a dancer as a child. I started dancing when I was 3. My parents put me in ballet class and I loved it from the get-go. So I had been a dancer, went professional. I studied at Juilliard School in New York and ended up as a pro at the Joffrey Ballet in New York and just kind of took that route of professional dancing up until college.
Wow. Okay. So a professional ballet dancer, that's no joke. I'm guessing that's pretty strenuous and pretty serious. I think a lot of people might, when they hear dancing, might think, oh, well, that's nice. But if I'm not mistaken, that's a very strenuous pursuit, is it not?
Yeah, I actually ended up leaving the professional world of dancing. As much as I loved to dance, I left the professional world because I'm actually 5'3" and have a pretty curvy body, which at the time was not ideal for a ballet dancer. I think since then there have been some dancers that have just stepped up and kind of changed the game a little bit. But back in the mid 80s when it was where I was, it was really not sought after, and I ended up getting slowly put in the back rows. And it became quite clear that it was not going to be something that I could pursue long term and make a living at it. So I left dancing, honestly, because I was either told to change my appearance or move on.
Wow. Okay. So you had this very active upbringing. You got to the very highest levels of ballet. And then, as you just described, you ended up leaving that. What happens next?
Well, then I went off my path for sure. You spend your whole life thinking you know who you are, and then all of a sudden you don't know who you are because what you identified with as a dancer, I was no longer. So I went to UCSB in Santa Barbara. My brother was going to UCSB, so I came out and followed in his footsteps. Studied English, dramatic arts, and ended up becoming a research paralegal, believe it or not. Miserable the entire time. But I was good at it. I'm really good at studying and research. And in the end, as you'll find out, that became really useful for me.
Yeah, the research part, I'm sure that's going to play into our story here down the line. Okay, so that's a pretty dramatic shift in your life. And to your point, you had to reinvent yourself and rediscover yourself. You had this identity as a dancer, and clearly at that high level of a dancer, that's not hard to understand how. And then all of a sudden you're in this world. What did you say? You're a research paralegal, right? And not really your life's passion, not lighting you up. So did you have struggles during that time? I mean, I can't imagine that's a pretty dramatic shift, right, in your life.
It's a dramatic shift. It literally was from one toxic environment to another. In retrospect, of course, when you're in it, you don't realize that. So you go, you're just trying to keep up with the Joneses, I think, when you're in your 20s and you're in college and you're trying to, figure out what you need to do. You needed to make rent and to have a living and to kind of fit in with the crowd. So I felt like I was always chasing a rainbow, like just trying to find my way. The catalyst of change for me was when I met my husband. He's a polo player, equestrian polo from Argentina. And he leapt out of bed every morning, so excited to go play with the horses. And he was making ridiculous amounts of money as an athlete playing this game. And I thought, what am I missing? Because he's so happy. And I mean, he works hard, but he's so happy. So he was really kind of the catalyst for me to go, wait a second, I think I'm doing something wrong here.
So it sounds like he had found his life's passion and was living it and sharing it with the world and was living this life that's in alignment with his values. And you're looking at this is your spouse, the person you're probably the closest to at this time of your life, and realizing that you weren't. You mentioned that was the catalyst. So what happened? What changed? You were a paralegal and you're...
Yeah, I left. Mm-hmm. I left. He asked me to leave and to find out what I wanted to do. In the back of my head, I knew dancing was what not only I loved to do, but I was really good at it. I mean, I knew what I was doing and I got into my zone and I was just happy. But that didn't even seem like an option to me. So I left and I followed his career, but little by little by little, it just became toxic for me because I was just the wife following the career and I wasn't living my own life. I ended up having the best thing that ever happened to me, which is we had our son during that time, Tomas. And again, he was the next catalyst for me when I got sick.
Okay, when you got sick, and that's a great segue here, and folks listening might be thinking, wait, what? Got sick? Because you've got kind of this almost fairy tale life up until college years, and then things shift. We have this reimagining of the self, and not really, like you said, you went from one toxic environment to another, and then you're shifting again, and now your identity, I suppose, is as the wife of this successful polo player. And then along comes Tomas, and certainly those of us with children know that's certainly a dividing life of before and after in anybody's life, and that changes things. But then you got sick. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, the environment that I was in was toxic in terms of I was angry and I couldn't figure out why. But in retrospect, again, it was because I went so far off my path. And when Tomas was born, 120% of my energy went into this beautiful being. And I was able to find a reason to live again, find a purpose, find something that brought me so much joy and so much happiness. Before he turned 2, I was diagnosed with advanced rheumatoid arthritis. And the problem with rheumatoid arthritis is that it really disables you. I was in so much pain, and the pain became the only thing that I was aware of. I couldn't open a jar of mayonnaise. My husband had to carry me to the bathroom. It was excruciatingly painful and disabling to the point where I couldn't care for my son.
So let me interrupt you right there. That's a pretty dramatic shift in your life, right? Did this come on suddenly? Was this gradual? How did this come about?
Yeah, again, it depends on how you look at it. I was given quite a few clues. I was having panic attacks. My body didn't feel healthy. I was getting sick a lot. So there were all of these. I say now that your body gives you reminders or little knocks on the door, says, wait up, listen to me. And if you don't listen, you'll get the rug pulled out from under you. I think I just didn't listen. I hit the override button and I know what I'm doing. I've got this. I didn't get it. And so then I got it, It was a huge shift, because then talk about loss of identity. I couldn't brush my hair on my own. I couldn't brush my teeth. My elbows weren't functioning. My shoulders weren't functioning. If I tried to do it, the pain it was like somebody was breaking my bones. It was horrible. So it became, that was the dark. That was the corner I got put into.
Yeah. And that is a dramatic shift, and that is darkness. And you had mentioned that there were these clues, and you had talked about your body was sending you these signals. And I think a lot of times what happens is we become disconnected, especially in this busy, frantic, stressful, fast-paced world. Our body sometimes whispers to us and we don't hear it. Our body speaks a little louder. We still don't hear it, or perhaps we ignore it. And finally, our body's forced to shout at us, right? And then by that point, things are pretty far along. So you're in this very dark place, and you've got a young son to take care of. Where do we go from here?
Well, we go to a lot of doctors.
Mm-hmm.
I went to 7 different specialists, seeking a different answer, actually, because they all said, here's the protocol. You have advanced RA, your numbers are super high. Basically, it just means that my body was rapidly destroying itself rather than moderately destroying itself. And they said, this is it. You got to shut down your immune system. We got to give you these drugs. When I asked about side effects, they said, don't worry about the side effects right now. You just need to kind of just do what we tell you to do to stop the pain and get out of a wheelchair. But of course, I went home and looked at side effects, and they averages about 15 years off of your lifespan on those drugs. So I sought everywhere. I looked under every rock to try and find a different way through Western medicine, and I didn't find one.
Yeah, Western medicine is more of a sick care than a health care system. And we talk about that a lot on this show. I think a lot of our listeners are pretty familiar to that. But let's back up a little bit. We're talking about rheumatoid arthritis here, and this is a pretty dramatic case. And you're still pretty young, right? How old were you when this came on?
I was 40.
Okay, so yeah, that's young, right? And let's just back up and define rheumatoid arthritis. What is rheumatoid arthritis?
Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease where your body has an immune response and attacks your joints. So the entire joint structure of your body gets disintegrated little by little. My left elbow, I don't know if you can see it, my left elbow fused. There you go. It fused at the joint. So the joint just kind of crumbled upon itself within a week. And that, by the way, was crazy. I will go through childbirth 20 times over before I have that happen again. It's really painful. There's no known cure. They say they don't know the cause. And as I mentioned, there's just a very long list of pharmaceuticals that they prescribe for it.
Right. And listeners to the show probably have heard us talk about rheumatoid arthritis. We've had other guests on in the past talking about it. Okay. So here you are. You're in this horrible place. You've gone to 7 different specialists and they're all telling you the same thing. It's Western medicine. So of course they are. The prescription is it's either surgery or pills typically. And in this case, a nasty load of pharmaceuticals in order to alleviate just the symptoms, right? But that comes along with a lot of side effects and you're doing your research. So we're here talking today, and I'm the audience can't see you, but you seem to be quite vibrant and alive and healthy. And where do we turn the corner here?
Well, the last doctor I saw said, "You're never going to find another way. There is no other way." And I took it as a challenge. I went home. I knew how to research. So I said, well, let's see what I can find. And I hit some really dark points because I was in a lot of pain and I was really scared. I was scared. I was scared as a mom more than anything. I was scared that I was never going to be able to hold my son or go to the park. That was the big thing. I wanted to take him to the park and push him on a swing. There were so many things that terrified me. I never thought that I would never dance again. So I think in that moment when you're facing the loss of everything, it was almost like a life review for me. I go, God, in my mind, I thought I didn't know that I didn't have all the time I thought I had. The Buddha says that one of the biggest mistakes we make is we think we have time. So I got to my dark night of the soul and I cried a lot and I started to research. And lo and behold, I found that there were, in fact, people who were able to completely heal RA and other autoimmune diseases with lifestyle changes, diet changes, mindset changes. And I was ready for it. I was going to give it 120% because more than anything, my son was worth it.
Okay, so let's dig into that. What were some of these lifestyle changes that you made? And clearly you had the incentive, right? Because this was it. This was your last best hope, your last only hope. So what sort of changes did you make?
Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar. Actually, you are familiar with Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who he kind of founded epigenetics. I started listening and researching Bruce Lipton's work. And he believed that the environment that we're in determines our state of being on a cellular level. And so the first step in my change was changing my environment. So the environment was my thoughts, certainly the way I felt. And that took a lot of digging. The process of healing is like peeling an onion that never stops. There's always another layer. So I began that journey. It was a journey of self-healing back to why I wasn't living the life that I knew I had come here to live, why I wasn't living on purpose, my purpose. That was the big change. The other changes that were a little bit easier were diet changes. I went 100% alkaline for about a year. So an alkaline diet, the pH levels of your body, they don't tell you this when you go to a doctor's office, but I found it astounding that it was something, I think in my research, I found that 98% of the people who have a chronic illness or who have an illness have something called acidosis, where their body is acidic. And acidosis can be caused by toxins not only in your environment, again, your emotional toxins, your negative energy creates acidosis and lowers your immune system, as well as the food. So the food was the easy thing to do. Ate like a rabbit. I just ate greens and vegetables and everything alkaline, didn't eat anything that had any acid in it. So that was a big thing. I actually felt an immediate improvement when I started the alkaline diet. And then last but not least there was 2 other things I did. I worked on healing my gut. There's also another theory. So I took all the different theories and put them all on one journey for me because I was going to hit all the marks. Was leaky gut syndrome is also known to cause autoimmune disorders. And I had never even heard about it. I thought, well, this is interesting. And so the theory behind leaky gut is that there's a perforation into your gut that food leaks out of and causes an immune response. So I targeted that as well, along with my alkaline diet, is heal leaky gut. And then last but not least is I went on a journey to find what brings me joy. And I created an environment where I sat my husband down and my family down, and I said, I love you all. You're going to think I'm crazy. I'm not going to do what the doctors tell me to do. I'm going to, for the first time in my life, listen to my heart, and I'm going to go on a journey of joy and happiness. And so I'm creating a sacred bubble. There's no arguments. If you want to be right, knock yourself out. I am 100% focused on healing and being there for my son. So that was a big one. I cut everybody off the hook. I love you. This is my time. I got to heal this. So that was the steps I took.
That's a powerful story. And I really love the way you describe that journey. You start with, I'm going to change my thoughts and my feelings and these negative emotions. And when you said that, I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, that makes sense. But that's easy for me to think because I'm not in constant crippling pain. But when you're in that place, that's not such an easy task, is it, to make that transition to, okay, I need to bring some positivity and I need to get rid of this negativity. So you start there and then you talk about a couple practical things, right? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try and heal my leaky gut. I'm going to work on an alkaline diet. Those are things probably that my audience was expecting to hear. But you really started with this emotional, spiritual journey, and you ended that little discussion there with a emotional, spiritual journey. You said, okay, I need to do this for me. You described it as create this sacred bubble, I think, and you're going to find what brings you joy. Now, some people listening to this, especially folks that are suffering with RA, might think that sounds a little woo-woo. So talk to us about this journey. This doesn't sound like a week-long journey and probably not a month-long journey. What does this look like?
So, yeah, it did sound a little woo-woo to me. But when you recognize that Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, all of these people, Joe Dispenza, who's genius, has hundreds and hundreds of people that he's worked with that have healed. When you find and you understand that the environment, the initial environment that you're living in is the one you're creating for yourself, the one that you're allowing into your world, the one that you're thinking and feeling, that's your initial environment. And if finding joy seems silly, then I would say, what are we doing here? We're here to be happy. We're here to live our purpose. We're not here to suffer, no matter how much they think, or we've been told that that's going to help us get to where we need to be. I think that there's a lot of what I have found falsehoods and just misconceptions. I thought it was woo-woo too, but you start on that path and you put one foot in front of the other. And during that healing process, I realized I want to dance. I just want to dance. I want to be there for my son. I want to show my son what it's like to dance and be happy. For more than anything, I just wanted him to see a happy parent and a happy mom and a happy family. Because if we're not here to be happy, I was coming from the polo world. So there's a lot of money in polo. I saw princes and kings and royalty and every billionaire on the planet. And I've been in a million different kinds of luxury cars. And 90% of those people are miserable because they put their attention and energy into something that they thought would bring them happiness instead of going inside and finding what really brought them happiness. So it's not a walk in the park. It's not a journey for the lighthearted, but it's a journey that we're all meant to be on, I think, in some way, shape, or form, is to just find our own joy and our own power and our own path to happiness.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that a lot of people miss the power of mindset and how much control we have over that. I think a lot of times, especially we live in times when there's just a lot of stress and anxiousness and depression, and now more so than ever, isolation. And it makes it tough to find joy and to manifest joy and to share joy, right? And to your point, that's a purposeful journey. I think you said it's not for the faint of heart, right? And oftentimes what we think is going to bring us joy are these external things. To your very, very good point, if I could just get that promotion, if I could just get that car, if I could just get that spouse or that significant, if I could just have fill in the blank with an external thing, then I would be happy, or then I would have joy. And so often that's not the case. That's an inward journey, typically not an outward journey. So it sounds like what's bringing you joy. We keep talking about dancing, and we haven't got there yet, but you're dancing today. Talk to us about that journey of self-actualization and finding joy and starting dancing again.
Yeah, thank you. Again, it wasn't overnight. I had said to my husband, I think I'm gonna teach Zumba, because it was a way to get me moving. I was committed to it. I had to show up. It wasn't something that I could just back out of. And I think at that point, my husband really thought I was mental. Like there was something really wrong with you. Like you can't even get out of bed and you're going to teach a Zumba. What? Like, what are you thinking? And I said, I know this sounds crazy, but if you could just help me get into that room, I know when the music goes, even if I'm just moving back and forth, I could just try to move. What we did is we sprayed my joints with capsaicin, which is horrible. It's horrible. It's like a hot pepper burning thing, but you burn so much that you forget the pain. You just got a different pain, And so I did. I started teaching a class. There were 3 people that showed up for my first class, and I didn't move very much, but I remembered when the music started what made me happy. And I was able to just in that 1 hour transcend the pain a little bit. It was still there. I still had the disease, but there was an emotional component that helped me shift my energy and, I would say frequency, because I think that's a big part of it, that I was very happy that I made that commitment to do it. And lo and behold, little by little by little, step by step by step, I started to heal. My body started to heal. I started to get happier, and more people started showing up.
Okay, so Zumba, huh?
Zumba.
We were talking a little bit before we hit record about Zumba.
Best program ever.
Yeah, so let's dig into that, right? You've got to convince me here. Here's a guy who's never done Zumba, and I've got my preconceived notion, probably the way a lot of our listeners do, but Zumba is quite the craze here. So before we go down the path of Zumba and your passion for Zumba and where you've brought Zumba or your journey with Zumba, what is Zumba? Just describe what Zumba is for those of us that think we know what it is.
Sure. Yeah, Zumba was an accident. It's a program that was developed by a gentleman named Beto Perez. He is a Colombian fitness instructor, and he had forgotten his aerobics music when he went to teach an aerobics class in Colombia, where he was from. And the only music he had, if you remember those little cassette tapes, he had a cassette tape in his car. So he put that in, but it was all like Latin dance music. And he put that in and decided to just start dancing and making it like a party, like you're going to the nightclubs and you're dancing. But he threw in some aerobic moves, some squats, some, a little level of difficulty. But people didn't know what was going on because they were so happy and dancing and laughing. And, it was like you were at the clubs. So that's how Zumba started. I understand that it's one of the, if not the number one fitness program. I think it was last year. I don't know how we are now after COVID, but it was the number one fitness program in the world.
Wow. So that's quite a craze. And I've seen Zumba classes. I've been on your website and you can kind of see this is a high energy. It's the cross of a full on party, dance, rave, and exercise. Is that fair?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, I think Zumba at a lot of places is different. It depends on the instructor you go to. My class in particular, Santa Barbara is an extraordinarily healthy community. And I had to up the ante here with my class. I recognized that people wanted a challenge. So for me, I just love the dancing and I love the movement, but I recognize that people really wanted a challenge. So you're going to sweat no matter what in a Zumba class. It's a very high intensity class. My class is probably on steroids with that one. I get it going and people love it. People love the feeling. But more than anything, when you're coming to my class in particular, and Zumba has come and done, they did a little documentary on my class. I incorporate the energy of aligning with the true self. I incorporate my entire journey up until now, all the BS I had to go through with the dance world and falling off my path, recognizing that as humans, we're all in this together. We all have a story. And if someone's suffering, they know they can show up in the class and there's an entire community of people that's going to lift you up, including me, and be silly and, not take ourselves too seriously. And we're going to get physical. I've got your physical taken care of. Zumba takes care of physical. You're going to get your aerobics. Your heart rate's going to go up. You're going to sweat your derriere off. You're going to have toxins released up the wazoo. But what happens on a frequency level, on an energy level, and on an emotional, spiritual level is a huge part of Zumba and of my class. So I like to say that we hit the 4 pillars of wellness, which is the mental aspect of wellness, the physical, like I said, we already have, the emotional, you've got a community that's holding you. You are also in a space that's safe, that's sacred, that you're free to cry if you need to cry, to release what you need to release. We had a lot of that over the last couple of years. And the spiritual, which is just this internal upliftment that you're going to get when you're getting all the rest of that stuff. There's just a high there. Have I sold it yet?
Well, you have. And I'm surprised listening to this. And I would imagine that my listeners that are not already familiar with what you're talking about may be a little bit surprised too, because I'm thinking it's fun and it's this dancing and it's this high intensity aerobics thing. So I got you on the physical, right? And I can see a little bit of the mental, emotional piece. I can see how that's a release. Pretty much any intense exercise, especially done in a community, will give you some of those benefits. But what surprises me the most is that you bring in this sacred spiritual aspect. You talk about that when you do Zumba with you, you're bringing your full life journey and this self-empowerment and some of this vocabulary that I'm not used to hearing outside of, say, the yoga or maybe even somewhat the Pilates, but really you're talking about this mind, body, spirit connection that doesn't come up like, say, in powerlifting very often, for example, or even in other community things like CrossFit or Orange Theory or other intense sort of community-based workouts. Let's dig into that spiritual, self-empowering side. I mean, that emotional side where you can go and you can cry and be held up and have this maybe even catharsis or this healing on a level other than just sweating and building muscle.
It's a huge part of wellness. And I think that it happens organically. I think it happens organically in most Zumba classes that the instructor holds that space, that holds that container of space. I was raised Christian. I ended up studying some religions as I went through this whole process. But spirituality was never really, I certainly never incorporated it into my dance routine. And yet I probably should have, because it's something that we take with us all the time, right? That spiritual connection, that energy is basically just the alignment of yourself with the higher power, with source, with your higher self, whatever you want to call it. I'm no guru, but I do know that the guru that we all need is inside of us. And if you are in a position where you can connect to that space, whether you do it in a meditation, and to be perfectly honest, Zumba is a moving meditation, or prayer, or intention. I know that in my class, at least in particular, because I don't go to a lot of other Zumba classes. I have been to a few and they're awesome. So I think that the energy of the class shifts you in a way. It shifts you to find there's a palpable energy inside of you that you connect with. And from there, it's like plugging into an electric outlet. You plug into your spiritual source and you recharge your entire physicality, your entire emotional body, again, mental body and spiritual body. And you go out into the world and everything changes. I mean, I healed a disease. I do accredit Zumba for a lot of it because it helped me shift my energy. It helped me shift my frequency.
Helped you shift your energy, helped you shift your frequency. So we're talking about this transcendence then in this Zumba environment, which to me is the surprising part of this discussion. I'll be very honest with you. I've looked at your website, so I had a feeling we might come into this space, but I was trying to get my head around how that fits in with my very limited preconceived notions of Zumba. So I'm fascinated with this alignment with my sacred self, with the divine reality, which is an important part of my life, right? But somehow I seem to hold that separate from a lot of the physical things I do, although I'm aware of there's a sacred component to the physicality of life. And so for me, the types of workouts that I'm doing, there is a sacredness there, but not in the way that I'm not as closely intertwined with that as what you're describing here. And I think that maybe even some of the folks in my audience listening to this might be a little bit surprised by that as well. And this, I think, is a nice segue to where I want to go next. I know that you talk a lot about higher self and higher self embodiment and this transcendent to this sacred space. And you talk a lot about quantum healing. Can you talk a little bit about quantum healing and maybe where that fits into this story?
Well, yeah, thank you. And again, I have to say that it may seem woo-woo when I talk about this. And it's not. I probably, when I was first diagnosed and somebody had said this, I'd be like, you've got to be kidding me. Lock this person up. I'm on the other side now and I understand things a little bit deeper. And I think when the first thing we have to say is, okay, we don't know it all. We don't know it all. And if one person is capable of healing and succeeding and building something that is meaningful, not just to me, but to other people, then I think there has to be an openness. A lot of people are seeking to drink from a deeper well right now. And that's where I go with quantum healing. And quantum healing is basically understanding the energy of the universe. It's putting it all together and understanding that as you think, so shall you be. And that's a Christian thing, but there it is. It's understanding that energy attracts like energy. And it's quantum physics, which is also something that Dr. Bruce Lipton is an extraordinary person and knowledgeable on that. It's science. It's there. It says, look, this is the energy, E equals MC squared. Your energy is going to create matter. Boom. Okay, well, if that's true, where am I focusing my energy? How is my energy creating the matter in my own life? And then you go into law of attraction, which is also, I think, part of quantum healing and quantum physics. It's all connected. It's all just connected. And it's simple. It's simple. Healing is simple. Life is simple. Everything is so simple once you understand that you're creating this, and I trigger people when I say you're creating this, and they're like, how you created your disease? Like, what do you mean? You didn't want to create. And thank God, I know that sounds horrible too, but thank God I created that disease for myself because it pushed me over the edge to understand the deeper level of who we all are. And we're all just scratching the surface a little bit here. I feel like I just started scratching the surface. Once people are empowered to know that they're captaining the ship of their life, that they can control the energy that comes in and the energy that flows out. And they can not only heal their own life, but stand as a beacon for other people who are also seeking to heal with humility and with an understanding that we're all in this together. Healing becomes natural and easy and in flow. I really went long on that answer. I don't know if I answered the question.
I love that. I absolutely love that healing becomes flow. And certainly those of us in the sports performance space understand flow, or you may understand flow in a number of different settings. But flow is really it's tapping into this state that's really, I think, it incorporates a lot of the elements that you're talking about, right? It's this innate letting go of all these preconceived notions and allowing, right? And just being in this state. And I think some of that resonates with what you were just talking about in the quantum healing. And I think you're right. That's a very triggering statement to tell people that they are in control and responsible for their lives and their life circumstances. And clearly there are things that are outside of our control, right? But we are in control of how we process that, how we deal with that. And the energy that we manifest is 100% in our control. And that's tough for some people to hear, especially I think if somebody would have told you that in your darkest hour and said, that illness that you have is within your control and you are responsible for healing, that wouldn't have resonated with you. It probably would not have sat well. But yet you went on this journey. And like you said, when you're through that and on the other side, you have this new reality, right? You've recreated yourself. You've recreated your reality. And here you are in this divine space, in this divine time, right where you're supposed to be. And I think that's what now you're manifesting this joy and you're sharing this joy, right? Which is really how I think that's our life's purpose, right? To discover what lights us up, what catches us on fire, and then to share that fire, that joy, that passion with others. And I don't know, does that resonate with you?
It's funny because I think the theory is so much easier than the application. Obviously, we can talk about it, and yes, that's exactly it. Also, I understood why and how I created that disease to begin with. Because as I had said, I had been getting hints. I wasn't living the life I knew to make me happy. I was chasing rainbows. It's funny, you follow the trends just so you could look the same like everybody else. What's the point? Yes, you're absolutely right. And the application of this theory is a huge process that deserves respect and time and intention. And it is sacred. For me, it's sacred. And I came from a dancer's perspective in terms of physicality. I know what being physically fit is all about, but you can also have an extraordinary physical capacity and appearance and be miserable and be unhealthy and be mentally unwell. But maybe, and hopefully now, at least for the kids that are growing up now, there is a shift towards hitting those 4 pillars when you go to work out. Like, okay, why are you trying to fit into those size 2 jeans just for us women? What is it that is what's again, digging a little deeper and making the wellness be about being well everywhere, being physically well inside and out and all that other stuff. So yeah, it's, again, the application is a little bit more complex and intricate than the theory, but again, it is simple. It's simple. And once you start that journey, it allows the flow to happen. I didn't know when I was sick. I didn't know that I was putting one foot in front of the other. I didn't know I was going to heal. I just woke up every morning in pain, and maybe some days the pain was a little less, and some days I took 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. The journey, man, it demanded my respect, but my intentions were there because I knew every time I looked at my son, okay, you got your roadmap. I don't know where this is going. I had to find trust. I had to surrender. And that whole journey, there was a lot going on. And again, the application is a little bit more complex than the theory, but it's there, and it's open for all of us to understand that we can all live from a deeper level. And once we understand that the thoughts, the intentions that we wake up with, that we take our breaths with, that we make our choices from, and that the energy that we put out into the world does navigate our journey. It does. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, so it's a simple theory, but it's the application is the tricky part. And let's take a minute and talk about that. So somebody listening to this is maybe this message is resonating with them. They think, holy moly, I am not, I'm stuck in a career I don't like, or I'm in a relationship that's not serving me anymore, or I'm just not where I don't know what's wrong, but I know I'm not where I'm supposed to be. How does that person start on this journey of self-discovery and living this life of this deeper spiritual life? What are some practical steps that person can take? I know you had mentioned yours started with a mindset shift. What are some practical takeaways for somebody that just wants to start in this put their foot on that first step of this path of this journey?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think everybody's journey is going to be different. I can say that for my journey and from what I tell other people, because I started coaching other people, obviously when my class got big and Zumba started paying attention, and then it kind of got renowned around the world, there was a lot of people that came to me and said, okay, what do I do? What do I do? How do I heal? I have found that the first step is to withdraw, cut everybody else off the hook, and start taking responsibility for where you're at. You put your boat in the water right where you are and go, I'm cutting everybody off the hook. I am 100% responsible. And that was a big deal for me. I had to cut my husband off. I really enjoyed blaming him for everything. And, I blame my mom for a few things, my childhood, my upbringing, the dance world. I blamed a lot of people, situations, and things. So for me, the first step was, all right, if you're going to do this journey, cut everybody else off the hook. It's you and you. You're responsible for where you go from here. And it's something all of us can do at every moment. You just stop and go, nope, nobody else's fault. It's my deal, my life, my journey, my choices. You're the captain.
I love it. I love it. Just that full ownership. And again, that can be tough for some people because they want to say that I'm in this place because of fill in the blank, right? Some external thing. It's my spouse, my children, my medical condition, just whatever that might be. My upbringing is a very common one. My genetics, and you had referenced some of that epigenetic stuff earlier. But when we stop and take ownership of this, I have to agree that that's probably a fantastic place to start. So Josette, I want to go back to the Zumba just for a minute before we wrap up here. So if folks are interested in that side and say, I've heard of Zumba, but I've never really tried it. Are there any considerations? My audience is all going to be 50 years and older. Are there any consideration for the aging athlete or aging person before starting Zumba?
I would say no. I'm 52. I'll be 53 this year. And my oldest is 95. He's a World War II veteran. And my youngest is 12 in my class. It is for everyone. You take it at your own pace. I have a bunch of pre-recorded classes. I think you can actually find some free classes on YouTube. If not, there's some classes on my website. Or go to Zumba.com and they'll show you where the classes are locally. But no, I think that if you go to a good teacher, and again, if you're online, check me out, then you'll find that you can just move the way your body feels.
So you can start where you are is what you're saying, right? This isn't something that somebody needs to have intense conditioning in order to get in, because obviously if they've seen a video or maybe have a friend that does it, they might think, well, that's pretty advanced. And what if I don't know how to dance? Or what if I'm arthritic and a little sore, and it might be intimidating? But this is a come as you are kind of environment, right?
That for me is the best part of Zumba. I mean, I come as a technically trained dancer, but you come as you are. The best part of this is that you don't have to know anything. And I think people get intimidated when they hear Zumba because they're like, oh, no. I got 2 left feet. I cannot do it. There is no way. I would say give it a shot. Just give it a try. You will be amazed at how fun it is. And that's the whole trick, is it's so much fun that after an hour, and you're soaking wet and you don't understand why your cheeks hurt so much because you've been smiling so much. It's a pretty cool way to get your fitness in and everything else, as we discussed.
Right. And everything else. Absolutely. Well, Josette, what's next for you? What's on the horizon? What's coming up for you?
Well, I just finished, I have a DailyOM course. I've been doing some courses. DailyOM has been really awesome with me. And I now have some courses on my website. And I am opening up a coaching program, broader, bigger scale, for people who want to really go into this, who really want to go into quantum healing and understanding the 4 pillars of health and the kind of digging in a little bit deeper on this journey. I want to really put a place for people that have support. So that's the next thing on the plan. I'm still dancing. I won't stop dancing ever.
All right. No, that's your passion and your purpose, of course. Okay. Well, we'll certainly be, I'm very interested in hearing more about that, and maybe you can come back on when that program has launched. But in the meantime, how can people connect with you? What's the best way?
Best way is Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Josette Tkacik. If you're not on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Zumba in SB is my handle. And JosetteT.com, my website.
And folks, I will drop all of that into the show notes so you can find that information there. Because, the spelling on your name might be a little tricky if people are trying to Google you. But yeah, folks, go to the show notes. You'll see all of that right there. So Josette, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your journey and being vulnerable with us, sharing your passion, your insight, and your wisdom, your knowledge. You're a wonderful ambassador for healthy aging and so inspirational. And I just encourage you to keep it up and wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, that's our show for this week. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. You can find all the links to the resources we discussed in this episode over at silveredgefitness.com/117, and you can continue the conversation over there as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on today's show. As we wrap up our time together today, you can show your support for this show in 2 important ways. The first is to tell a friend about this podcast and encourage them to give it a listen. The second is to give this podcast a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. I also want to let you know that if you've enjoyed this podcast, I have other free resources over at silveredgefree.com. There you'll find my guides with my top tips on exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle. So feel free to head over there and download anything that looks useful to you and your health and wellness journey. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today, and until next time, stay strong.